The Florida Panthers had to say bye to some fan favorites, but have welcomed in new faces to the team as they are looking into a different direction and also looking to build off their Eastern Conference championship.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into the Sunday, July 2nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez. You can follow me on Twitter at MonoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back to get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So, what a Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, for the entirety of the NHL and in the perspective of the Florida Panthers, going into a direction we didn't really expect them to go into. I mean, it was just a crazy day overall, because if you are on Twitter, you saw how the rate exceeded for every time you refresh your feed. It was a really hard time especially for those national insiders to discuss who was signing where and who was being traded ahead of free agency while it was all going on. But it's a special edition of the show. It's a live edition of the show. Actually, we're on YouTube because this is the possibility of things getting outdated. That's why we are doing this live on the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube page. And my guest here today is a very familiar voice to the show, who is a little bit, if you're watching this on YouTube, a little bit of the Matrix right behind them with his background and green screen there. And it is Francisco Oporta, Florida Panthers historian and Marlins historian as well. Francisco, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, don't watch the Marlins. They're playing the Braves, and it's not going well right now.
Hey, Alcantara's on the mound today.
So. But Yuri was on the mound yesterday, and not a great first inning. But anyways, I'm back. I'm in somewhere between time and space right now, but the rate limit was exceeded, so I think it's messed with the time and the space time continuum behind me out here, and actually part of my face too. But so I've covered at the arena deadline or not deadline day, but the opening of free agency, and it's always kind of like it's wild. It's always a wild kind of thing. Everybody's just trying to look at trying to find the sources. They're on their computer, they're on their phone. I was like sitting next to Jameson Olive and George Richards, and just like they're really trying to break news and find out what's going on. And so I can only imagine everybody that's been covering this for the past 10 years, let's say, with Twitter and just suddenly not being able to see what the heck is going on, and maybe going to like the old way of finding out your sources by like calling people, texting them. And, I feel bad for them because that's their job, and that kind of sucks. But we did find out the news. So we did eventually find out who went where and what happened.
Yeah, and I want to start off this first segment of the guys who are no longer with the organization as well. And Radko Gudas signed a 3-year, $12 million contract with the Anaheim Ducks, and was saying it from the start of free agency that the Florida Panthers were likely not going to give Radko Gudas a term. As far as I was going to assume that they were going to give him 2 years max, but he ended up being taking the money and doing what's best for him. And of course, we knew the Stahl brothers were not going to come back. Colin White, Giovanni Smith, congratulations to Giovanni Smith on getting term on a contract with the San Jose Sharks, a very team-friendly deal for them as well. And Alex Lyon for him going to the Detroit Red Wings, 2 times $900K for him. It's funny, the Detroit Red Wings get an Alex a few years ago, Alex Nedeljkovic, in a trade after he had a pretty good season. And then, of course, Alex Lyon here as well. So a little bit of a battle there, likely to back up Billy Huso as well, but definitely going to get his opportunities. Took took the money, and congratulations to him. But another player that the Florida Panthers had to say goodbye to was via a trade, and it happened around like maybe 6 p.m. Yesterday, and we were anticipating an Anthony Duclair trade for a few days now. Originally, it was him to the Calgary Flames, probably in exchange for Noah Hannafin. Now that possibility is over, but Anthony Duclair and his $3 million cap hit is going to the San Jose Sharks for forward Steven Lorentz and a 2025 fifth-round pick. And Steven Lorentz, remember him mostly in Carolina, but look at this, Francisco. 6'4", 206 pounds, 133 hits in 80 games. The points aren't necessarily there. Average time on ice is 1150 for Lorentz. But a guy like, you think about how the Panthers were kind of a little bullied, especially in their bottom six, by the Vegas Golden Knights, and this move is an indication of getting a little bigger and the ability to also protect the house if needed. And if it comes to battles along the walls, you have guys who are there, and Steven Lorentz, he's a guy who definitely provides that. I mean, Anthony Duclair, 5'11", 197, not necessarily known for his defense. He's a burner when it comes to breakaways, but of course we've complained about finishing ability for Duke. So I think this is a pretty fair trade, and the only difference is $2 million for the Panthers, and of course we'll discuss more in segment number 2 what it's brought for the Cats. But what do you think about this trade for Lorentz, and of course Radko leaving the Panthers?
So I mean, as far as the Lorentz trade, he's going to do well on the bottom line there. I think you've got size as well, and he actually led his team in faceoff percentage. So you have a guy that can actually win you the puck in key situations. So that's also another bonus benefit there. I mean, saying goodbye to Duke, a lot of people have taken it hard on the socials out there. So it's understandable. I mean, Duke was a fan favorite. He was a fantastic ambassador for hockey here as a Black hockey player as well. Made a lot of strides in connecting with the community down here. Was very good friends with Udonis Haslem, who that connection there helped to not only spread the image of the Panthers, but also spread hockey amongst people that's wouldn't normally look at a hockey game or think that, oh, this is a guy that's like me. And even though, Duke is African Canadian in that sense, but still he was a fantastic ambassador. And but there was situations where he got kind of streaky. Finishing ability kind of came in question at some points, but of course he was high octane, high flying when he was healthy, which was another thing as well. That I think the Panthers were willing to trade that off, because what good is a player if he's not on the ice? I tweeted out how many I think he played in his time in Florida, only like 137 games in total, and he missed a lot of time last season. So there was a need for a body that could stay healthy, and also a need, because you did make a good point as far as the Panthers getting bullied by the Vegas Golden Knights at the end. But of course, I think we kind of do have to take a look at that, because the Panthers were very, very beaten up by the time they got to the Stanley Cup final. That's always a caveat. And of course, the moves that have been made in this free agency period, and then the opening of trades in the offseason, is in a way trying to offset what's going to happen come beginning of the season, as far as which bodies can come back to a modicum of health by the time the season starts in October, when we rub it in the face of the Leafs.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned Steven Lorentz face-offs, and he took over 500 face-offs for the San Jose Sharks last year. So definitely probably the Eric Stahl replacement on that fourth line coming into the season. So that's the role that you could expect Steven Lorentz to play come October for the Florida Panthers. But we're going to discuss in segment number 2 who are the guys who came in for the Florida Panthers from outside the organization via free agent signings. We're going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about FanDuel and take your swing at betting on Major League Baseball at FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you spend betting everything from the money line to the over under to who you think is going to get the first home run. It's all on the app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Segment number 2 here on this Sunday, July 2nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, live on YouTube to discuss the Florida Panthers and how they did in free agency on Saturday. But Francisco, so some of the guys who were really spoken about early in free agency, even before noon on Saturday, Oliver Ekman-Larsson was the first domino to drop, of course, bought out by the Vancouver Canucks. Also, the Arizona Coyotes are partially paying his salary as well. A pretty decent contract for being a former first-round pick and a former captain as well. One times 2.5. Puck mover wasn't necessarily healthy last year, and Bill Zito was trying to sell him on Las Olas Boulevard, and he wanted to go straight into the hockey about how he can win in this organization. Likely a second or even third pairing role for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. But off camera, I was talking to my friend Nick Fairbanks about who is possibly going to be the quarterback on the power play to start the season. I'm like, is it going to be Gus Forsling or something? But I think they found their temporary power play 1 QB with Montour at least expected to miss a significant amount of time. Another one is Dmitry Kulikov, of course, 2009 draft pick, 14th overall in that one. So my 18, 19-year-old Armando is very happy with Dmitry Kulikov coming back. 7 years with the Panthers, 7 years away, and now coming back to the organization. 6'1", 201 pounds, 1x1. And then another defenseman, Nico Mikkola, 3 times 7.5. A guy who, as far as the Corsi 4 percentage, not the best when it came to his time with St. Louis, but he's brought in as a guy who could kill penalties. Don't really look at the points.
Big
when
body.
It comes to him.
Big body.
6'5", 209, and can kill penalties as well from Finland. So those guys are the big defensive signings as far as the Panthers. Mike Riley is a guy who played 10 games for the Boston Bruins, was placed on waivers multiple times and cleared, so likely not going to have a big role for the Florida Panthers. But as far as defensive depth for the Panthers have signed, all of them are left shot. That's the thing as well. All of them are. So what do you think of the guys that Bill Zito decided to bring in as far as the defensemen for the first day of free agency?
I think it's pretty eye-opening the amount of term that these guys are getting. Like Cooley's on a 1 year term. Same thing with Riley. And same thing with OEL, and I think only Mikkola was getting what's he's got 3 years, 3 year contract. There we go.
3 times 2.5.
Yeah, so just seeing the 1 year contracts, I'm like, those are pretty much, we need bodies to kind of fill in while Ekblad and Montour get healthy, because we don't know the extent completely of the recovery. And we don't know what the timetable will be, reasonably so, by the time they come back. So it is interesting what the Panthers will do with the LTIR, because other teams have taken advantage of it. That's kind of been the kind of not a cheat code, but the pro gamer move that other organizations, GMs, Tampa Bay Lightning, the Blackhawks have done it, and the Vegas Golden Knights did it as well. That can ease your team into the season, and then midway through the regular season, get your bodies back and take advantage of the cap space in that sense, even though the cap did go up. Um, but I mean, I think that for what we needed, it's a pretty good uh, course of action for Zito. I think he pretty much addressed some of the concerns coming off of just this run, and things that I'm sure that they weren't really expecting to deal with, but these are essentially plugging holes and in a sort of sense a band-aid to see what we can do before uh, it's when these guys are going to get healthy, really, before actual guys get healthy. And so, I mean, you can even tell with the Riley contract, even though it's a one way, he might have been a bit held up in Boston with their depth and things like that. So, because Zito has also been able to identify guys that could probably flourish with a bigger role. We've seen it time and time again now, and it's something. I think it's one of the good things about his hockey acumen, his past with hockey development, being an assistant GM in Columbus and everything like that, is that he's been able to identify guys that look like they could break out if you just give them a shot at a bigger role. So maybe that's the other thing that he's eyeing. He's just giving these guys, look, one year contract. Let's see what you got. Let's see what we're doing here. OEL, a 1 year contract. He's Vancouver bought him out 4 years as well, and it's also kind of a like a show me contract as well for OEL to see where he's at, see if he can stay healthy, see if he can kind of get to the point where he was when he was like highly touted in Phoenix or Arizona, where you want to call him right now. I mean, and Mikko, I think Mikola, sorry, Nico Mikola. Gosh,
Nico Mikola.
Nico Mikola. I mean, he was healthy. He was healthy. He played 81 games for the entire season. Played all of the Rangers 7 games in the first round against the Devils. So it's just a big body that can stay on the ice. So, and they gave him 3 years, and we'll see how that works out. So, I mean, so far, as far as and we also have to think about the fact that they did lose Gudas to Anaheim. So I'm glad he's going to the West, so we don't have to see him that much, because he's fan favorite down here as well. And we know how he plays. And I think I would have hated to hate him on an Eastern Conference team or a team in the division. So I'm glad that he's off to Anaheim. We only get to see him twice a season, unless they meet in the Stanley Cup final or something. So that's good. Everybody's happy for Gudas. He's going to be missed as well. But I think as far as what Zito did, I mean, I think he, I would say, mission accomplished with what they needed to do.
Yeah, he also signed guys that he's familiar with. Kevin Strenlin, 1x1, familiarity with Zito back in Columbus, and also familiarity as far as the organization, but not under contract with the Panthers. Alexander True, 6'5", 200 pounds from Denmark, was with the Charlotte Checkers organization, but under contract with the Seattle Kraken when they shared an affiliate last year as well. 42 points in 60 games, 18 goals there. So that's a good opportunity to get someone in the organization, a two-way deal. So a chance for him to come up if there is an injury as well. A few other forward signings. Evan Rodriguez, which his stock has risen up since his last year in Pittsburgh, and then got an opportunity in the bottom six for the Colorado Avalanche. 201 faceoffs taken last year at almost 15% at 17 minutes and 51 seconds average time on ice. 6th best Corsi for percentage on the Avs last season as well. And then 2 more signings. Actually, one breaking news while we're recording. William Lockwood, a two-year two-way contract, played mostly in the AHL last year with Vancouver and the New York Rangers. And Jerry Mayhew is coming back to the Florida Panthers on a two-way contract as well. So really excited about Evan Rodriguez. This one's a four-year deal for the Panthers as well. Undrafted, spent lots of years in the Buffalo Sabres when they were going through rebuilding, and as well didn't really get as much of an opportunity as he wanted. 29 years old as well, so definitely a chance to break out even more than he has in the last few years. And goalie Anthony Stolarz, who actually had a decent 2022 with 2.67 GAA and 917 save percentage, seen as the third goalie in the organization. And also Bill Zito spoke about how Spencer Knight will be back in some capacity, whether it's in the AHL or the NHL. Cap Friendly has Spencer Knight's contract right now on LTIR right now. So with his new contract kicking in, if he wasn't on the Players Assistance Program or injured, you would have to send him through waivers in order to get him down to Charlotte. But I guess they can use maybe like a conditioning stint, which is the max 5 games that you could use during a conditioning stint as well. So who knows? There's still a lot of time for Spencer Knight to get right and possibly come back to the team. So not necessarily concerned about that right now, but Stolarz 6'6", 245 from the USA. This Evan Rodriguez signing, Francisco, one I really, really like as well. As a guy who can take faceoffs, and if a guy is injured in the top 6, you don't have to worry about that center position having a hole, because you can put Anton Lundell or Etu Luostarinen on Barkov's wing, and I think that's a big luxury in making the Duclair trade when they did.
I mean, I was looking at his highlights before we went on, especially his highlights with the Penguins. I noticed he made a lot of power play goals, which was noticeably absent by the time the Stanley Cup final happened. But just seeing the way that he handles himself, he can hit the turbo once he gets on a breakaway. He has shown the ability to finish. He had 19 goals about 2 seasons back with the Penguins. He had 16 last season with the Avs, and and the ability to kind of fling it on the power play, which is good. It seems like he doesn't. From the highlights that I saw, it seems like he doesn't think too much when he's on there. It was like if he gets the puck, he sees a hole, he'll just fling it, or he takes a wicked slap shot and sees what happens. So I think the Panthers really do need guys that kind of stop thinking for a bit and kind of just fling it and see what happens. I mean, I from what I've seen, I'm recognizing his game. It's like, okay, that's definitely like a possible Duke replacement there. I mean, he's also been, relatively healthy. He played all 82 games with the Penguins about 2 seasons back. Played a very nice 69 games for the Avs last season. So he's been able to stay on the ice for the most part. So I like the signing. I think it once again, it's another hole. Hopefully he's able to stay healthy and also have the ability to put up 20 goals or possibly more with in that role.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned him playing on the power play. 7 power play goals in 2022, 6 in 2023. Of course, with the Avalanche coming off a Stanley Cup championship, his role wasn't going to be on the top power play unit. So we could expect, if he's going to play special teams for the Panthers, that he's going to be part of that second unit to take the key face-off and to keep the puck in their own zone as well. So definitely a really good signing and for the Panthers right at 29 years old to help mentor some of the guys coming up as well. And definitely, even though he's undersized, he plays above that size at 5'11", 184 pounds for the Panthers. So definitely excited to see what he can do with this team. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to give our free agency grades to this point on how Bill Zito has done and what these moves and trades can possibly set up for later on, as we are not done with seeing what this Panthers team can do. So we're going to discuss that more next on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Segment number 3 here on this Sunday, July 2nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And everydayers, make sure to come back on tomorrow's edition of the show, where we're going to discuss more about other guys who have re-signed with the Florida Panthers, like Grigori Denisenko, Alexei Heponiemi, and Lucas Carlson. Well, Heponiemi hasn't had his official contract terms yet, but we're going to discuss more about the guys within the organization in the minors who have gotten new contracts and are expected to have new contracts as well. So come back for tomorrow's edition of the show. So, Francisco, we talked more about all the moves, about how, and the way I see it is, this flat cap sucks. Let's not kid ourselves. And we even saw someone like a Dmitry Orlov not get a full 8-year deal. His was only 2 with the Carolina Hurricanes. And man, Carolina Hurricanes had a great free agency, in my opinion, and a great offseason as well for the New Jersey Devils too, as well. But I didn't think that Bill Zito was super overly impulsive when it came to free agency during this period. Of course, there's going to be possibly some LTIR space to play with. I don't think that the Panthers are going to use all of it, because you're going to have to find a way to get guys back. As far as contracts, total contracts on your team, which you could have up to 50. There's currently, as far as cap friendly, refreshing there's currently 7 spots left, and you don't have to fill them all. Of course, you want to have some futures possibly in there. But the thing is, the Panthers don't have to start the season with 20 players this year. So that's already a win all in itself. So I want to ask you, what is, I have my grade written down so that, and I'll show the camera once you're done with yours. But what is your free agency grade for Bill Zito during this time of free agency to this point, 12:45 p.m. on Sunday, July 2nd?
I mean, so far, I'll give it a B+. I mean, I think it's about, he did what he needed to do. He kind of just got the, we have the same thing? Are we on the same page right here? Is that what we're doing here? I can't even see it. I can't. Hold on. There it is. I see it now. Okay. Yeah. It's somewhere off there. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'll give it a B+ at this point. I don't think it wasn't nothing overly too flashy. I mean, he made the big off-season move last year. So that was, it'd be really tough to kind of repeat that performance of getting Tkachuk over to Florida, but he essentially plugged in the holes that we needed plugged, and in a unique situation where he had to account for the aftermath of a Stanley Cup final run, and having a team that can kind of stick around. Hopefully, I mean they've basically shown last season that you can stick around in the regular season as long as you're able to get in at any spot in the postseason. This Panthers team at the very least has guys that have the resiliency and the know-how to kind of show that, okay, it doesn't matter where we're at. We defeated the best regular season team of all time, and we're still able to make it to the Stanley Cup final. So, and a couple bodies away from possibly making that an actual series against Vegas. So I think not getting too ahead of himself, not letting that sort of fervor, that sort of excitement, because maybe a different GM would have been, all right, let's go all in. We're about to make it, and it's like they really do need to kind of step back, see where they're at with regards to Tkachuk's recovery, Montour's recovery, Ekblad's recovery, pretty much everybody's recovery who's stuck around now at this point. So we'll see where Spencer Knight's at as far as his his recovery from his mental health and everything like that. So there's a few things that they really don't need to go out and make the big splash. If you want to get Eric Carlson, I wouldn't mind, but I don't foresee something like that happening,
Mm-mm.
because that will definitely shoot it up to an A+ for me. But I don't see how in that sense. But regardless, a B+. I think it's a fairly reasonable off season so far for Zito.
Yeah, and if you guys were watching this on the YouTube, I put my notebook with also B+ as well. We didn't discuss what our grades were before discussing this live on the show. So, and apologies for you guys for looking at my chicken scratch there as well. But yeah, when it comes to Bill Zito and what he's done, I mean, you said it, the big offseason trade, and this is the thing, that was 22 days after fruit. Well, it started on July 13th last year, I believe. So two weeks after last year. So there's still something possibly to be done for this Florida Panthers team as free agency is still going. Tyler Bertuzzi is reported to want a 6-year deal as well. That's why he's left unsigned. Vladimir Tarasenko as well is still out there, but of course, right now the Florida Panthers, as far as total cap, is looking at 83.1 right now, total cap. Of course, that can shoot up a little bit with LTIR space to use as well, and of course, learning how to manage it as well. Not getting too ahead of themselves as well. And also, one thing I learned to appreciate last year when going through a transition of player like Kachuk, coach like Paul Maurice, as well, is appreciating the marathon that is with the season, of the peaks and valleys as well. Of course, the President's Trophy season, we didn't see much adversity for this team, and of course, falling themselves flat. And then the Bill Zito going scorched earth when it came to, if that's the right use of words, for as far as putting draft capital to make themselves competitive as well. But of course, he's seeing with the lack of draft capital, he's not dishing out more just for the sake of dishing out as well. And also that it's little bits at a time. It's like the whole eating an elephant one bite at a time as well. So it's also taught me to appreciate more of what this upcoming season is going to be, even though the Florida Panthers aren't going to be necessarily healthy as far as bodies wise. So that's why you see a whole run of defensemen where they're at as well. So that's kind of like how I'm starting to see these transactions for the Cats.
So yeah, I think that's the other thing. I mean, the team kind of does need to make sure that they don't mortgage completely the future at this point. That's I mean, we didn't have a first round draft pick this season, and so that's just at this point. It's once again, it's a nice problem to have after winning the Eastern Conference. But really, they do need to recover. They really do need to kind of take cues from teams that have been able to get back into deep playoff runs. I mean, and they're going to have to contend with the Carolina Hurricanes, who are just pissed off about losing the Eastern Conference Finals every time now. So that's, I mean, that they did what they needed to do for sure. We'll see if they can finally get over the hump. But for now, the Panthers, it's just about getting healthy, and then we'll see where we're at by the end of December or something.
Yeah, and that's the hope, is the team that's healthiest towards the back half of the season versus at the front half, which we saw the Florida Panthers experience mostly through the beginning of the season, really from Game 3 of the season when Aaron Ekblad originally went down to really mid and late February is when the Florida Panthers really started, and it's to continue to keep that in mind for all of you guys when going through the, once again, peaks and valleys of the season. But Francisco, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast to discuss free agency up to this point. Tell everybody where they can follow you and your work online.
Sure. If you want to be one of your 600 posts a day that you want to watch and read, you can check me out on Twitter at FLA Cats History. So that's where I'll be trying to post knickknacks and stuff about the team. And I've posted some stuff about the guys that have left already, just kind of like a summary of their time with the Panthers thus far. And at Marlins History, just don't watch the Marlins play the Braves, But aside from that, the Marlins are doing well, and hopefully they'll take the reins from the Heat and the Panthers and follow in their footsteps, try and make a World Series run this season. That's the hope. But South Florida is jumping on board with the Marlins lately, and if you're a Panthers fan, I think you'll see a lot of parallels between the two teams, both started by Wayne Huizenga, both with fantastic early history, but tumultuous post afterwards.
Both in 1993.
Yeah, both 93. Both, the Marlins were able to win 2 championships, but the relationship with South Florida was hurt for a long time, and it took new ownership and a commitment to actually getting it right on the field, and guys that can put it together to bring everybody back. And it's the same story that the Panthers have gone through the last 10 seasons when they're the Viola ownership. So, and they've done a fantastic job. I've always commended them since I started covering the team around the same time they began owning the team. So I've seen, and I'm sure lots of Cats fans have seen the bottom, and look where we're at now. These are good problems to have. It's like, oh man, all the guys are injured because we almost won the Stanley Cup. So that's it's good problems to have. And let's see how, let's have a fun summer, and we'll be back in October, and we can rub it in the face of those Leafs fans at the home opener.
No doubt. Had to put that twice when it came to mentioning the Leafs. That's for sure. Thanks, Francisco, and I'll see you next time, my friend.
All right.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On AHL Network, including Locked On AHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On AHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And every dayers come back tomorrow. We'll be discussing more of the other depth signings that the Florida Panthers have brought back to the organization, and what their roles will become this season for the Cats. So I'm Armando Velez with Francisco Oporta, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.